In 2026, Birmingham remains one of the most important cities in the United Kingdom, but it also carries one of the country's most controversial reputations. While some areas of the city are undergoing modernisation and receiving new investments, others continue to face problems that make many people question whether Birmingham has become one of the most difficult places to live in England. Some neighbourhoods in the city are frequently associated with high levels of crime, street violence, gangs, and social issues that seem to have repeated themselves for decades. For many people, these areas represent the side of the United Kingdom that rarely appears on postcards. Streets where residents deal every day with insecurity, inequality, and the feeling that they have been forgotten. But how did one of the cities that helped build Britain's wealth come to be viewed this way? What transformed neighbourhoods that were once working-class communities into places known for their problems? And does Birmingham really deserve the reputation of being one of the most dangerous cities in the United Kingdom? In this video, we will explore the lesser-known side of Birmingham and reveal the story behind the neighbourhoods that carry this reputation, a journey through decades of economic changes, social challenges, and the reality of the people who still call these places home. For much of its history, Birmingham was not known for the problems that some areas face today. Before gaining a negative reputation, the city was one of Britain's greatest economic forces and one of the main symbols of the country's industrial power. Located in the heart of England, Birmingham grew during the Industrial Revolution and became known as the workshop of the world. This name emerged because the city produced a huge variety of goods, from tools and machine parts to equipment used in different parts of the world. Its factories and industries helped transform England into one of the greatest economic powers on the planet. During this period of growth, many neighbourhoods in Birmingham were built around working-class communities. They were places where families lived for generations. Neighbours knew each other, and factory work was the foundation of everyday life. For many people, these neighbourhoods represented stability, opportunity, and the possibility of a better life. The streets were filled with small businesses, local shops, and workers heading to factories every day. The city attracted thousands of people from different parts of the United Kingdom in search of employment, allowing Birmingham to grow rapidly and become one of the country's most important cities. For decades, industry was the heart of the city. Thousands of families depended on factories to build their lives, and many residents believed Birmingham would continue to be one of Europe's great industrial cities. These neighbourhoods, which today carry a very different image, were once symbols of British growth and economic strength. They represented a time when Birmingham was seen as a city of opportunities, where people could work, raise a family, and have a stable life. But this era of prosperity depended heavily on industry, and when this model began to disappear in the following decades, Birmingham would face one of the greatest transformations in its history. The transformation of Birmingham began when the industrial model that supported the city started to enter a period of decline. From the second half of the 20th century onward, many factories that had been responsible for creating jobs for decades began to face difficulties, lose competitiveness, and, in many cases, shut down completely. With the rise of globalisation, part of British industrial production began to move to other countries where costs were lower. Traditional sectors in Birmingham, such as car manufacturing, engineering, and metal production, were deeply affected by this shift. The disappearance of these industries did not only mean the closure of old buildings and factories. For many neighbourhoods, it meant the loss of the population's main source of income. Places that once had a thriving economy began to struggle to replace the jobs that had disappeared. The economic changes also altered the structure of these neighbourhoods. Areas that depended on industrial workers began to lose commercial activity, while former production sites were left abandoned or replaced by new urban development projects. In addition, the city had to deal with a difficult transition, moving away from an economy based on factories and trying to adapt to a new model focused on services, technology, and commerce. While some regions managed to reinvent themselves, others struggled to keep up with this transformation. With Birmingham's economic transformation, some neighbourhoods began to face a new reality. The old structure that had kept these communities strong slowly disappeared, and many residents began to notice changes in their daily lives. With fewer job opportunities and less money circulating, some neighbourhoods started to lose part of their energy and vitality. Small businesses struggled to survive. Some areas became less maintained, and a feeling of neglect began to grow among part of the population. Another problem that emerged was the difficulty faced by younger generations in adapting to the new reality. With fewer traditional jobs available, many young people found it harder to build stable careers, increasing frustration in some communities. At the same time, some areas of Birmingham went through major demographic changes. New communities arrived, different cultures began sharing the same spaces, and the identity of some neighbourhoods started to change rapidly. For some residents, these changes represented the natural evolution of a city becoming more diverse. For others, the speed of these transformations created a feeling that the old local identity was being lost. Over the years, the combination of economic difficulties, social changes, and a lack of investment in certain areas created a negative image of specific neighbourhoods in Birmingham. Places that were once known simply as working-class communities began to be associated with urban problems and social challenges. Over the years, some neighbourhoods in Birmingham began to be associated with safety problems, causing certain areas to develop a negative image both within and outside the city. One of the main factors behind this change was the growth of issues related to urban crime. Some areas began recording higher levels of theft, street violence, and activities linked to drug trafficking, creating a feeling of insecurity among some residents. The presence of gangs also became a concern in certain communities. Groups involved in territorial disputes and organised crime began to influence the way many people viewed these neighbourhoods, especially among young people growing up in these areas. Beyond the most visible crimes, another problem was the constant feeling of insecurity. For some residents, the concern was not only about major incidents, but also about everyday situations, such as avoiding certain streets at night or fearing conflicts happening near their homes. The reputation of these neighbourhoods was further reinforced by the way they were portrayed in the media. News reports about violence often place certain areas of Birmingham at the centre of public safety discussions, causing many places to become known only for their problems. However, the reality of these neighbourhoods is more complex than crime statistics alone suggest. Thousands of people continue to live, work, and raise families in these communities while facing the challenges of a region that carries a difficult reputation to change. The problems faced by some areas of Birmingham did not appear because of a single factor. Over the decades, a combination of economic, social, and urban changes created challenges that continue to affect parts of the city today. One of the main issues is the inequality between different areas of Birmingham. While some neighbourhoods have received major investments, new buildings, and regeneration projects, others have experienced a much slower recovery, creating a visible difference in quality of life between communities. Housing has also become an important challenge. Some areas face problems related to older homes, properties requiring renovation, and difficulties for some families to find good quality housing at affordable prices. Another factor is the lack of opportunities for some young people. In certain communities, gaining access to good jobs, quality education, and stable career paths remains a challenge. Experts often point out that a lack of prospects can increase young people's vulnerability to becoming involved in criminal activities. Education also plays an important role in this story. Differences in academic performance between wealthier and poorer areas show that the place where a person grows up can influence their future opportunities. In addition, Birmingham has gone through a rapid transformation. A city that for a long time depended on an industrial economy has had to adapt to a new model based on services, technology, and knowledge. Some areas have managed to keep up with this change, while others have fallen behind. The result is a city of major contrasts. While Birmingham has important universities, major companies, and modern urban regeneration projects, some neighbourhoods still struggle with problems that have accumulated over decades. While some areas of Birmingham became known for their problems, the city as a whole went through a major attempt at reconstruction over the last few decades. The goal was to leave behind the image of an old industrial city in decline and create a new identity for the 21st century. One of the biggest symbols of this transformation was the revitalisation of the city centre. For many years, Birmingham was viewed by many Britons as a grey city, defined by concrete, traffic, and outdated buildings. But major urban projects began to transform the central area with new public spaces, modern commercial districts, and investments in infrastructure. One of the best-known examples was the redevelopment of the New Street and Bullring area, which transformed a location considered outdated into one of the United Kingdom's main shopping destinations. The arrival of new developments helped attract visitors, businesses, and workers to the city. In addition, Birmingham began trying to move away from its dependence on traditional industries. The city started investing more in sectors such as technology, education, financial services, and international events. The presence of major universities and a young population helped support this process of change. However, this recovery did not happen equally everywhere. While the city centre received major investments and went through visible modernisation, some outer neighbourhoods continued to face long-standing difficulties. This contrast created one of the most defining characteristics of modern Birmingham, a city divided between areas that represent the future and regions that still carry the problems of the past. For some people, Birmingham is experiencing a renaissance and has finally moved beyond the negative image it once had. For others, the transformation has not reached all residents yet, and many neighbourhoods are still waiting for improvements. For many years, Birmingham carried a complicated reputation within the United Kingdom itself. For many people outside the city, this image was shaped mainly by news reports about crime, poverty, and social problems, causing some neighbourhoods to be seen only through their negative aspects. This perception created an additional problem: stigma. Living in certain areas of Birmingham came to mean, for some people, facing prejudice or judgment before others even understood the reality of those places. Businesses, residents from other regions, and even people looking for a new home often automatically associated certain neighbourhoods with danger and a lack of opportunities. As a result, some communities had to fight not only against real problems, but also against the negative image that had been built over time. However, the reality is far more complex. Many of these neighbourhoods have strong communities, local businesses, organisations supporting residents, and people who work every day to improve their areas. Birmingham is also a city known for its cultural diversity. Different communities have built their lives in the city over many decades, creating a mixture of cultures, restaurants, events, and traditions that are part of its modern identity. At the same time, this diversity has also created debates about integration, cultural changes, and how a city can maintain its identity while continuing to evolve. The great contrast of Birmingham lies precisely in this. The same city that appears in headlines related to social problems is also a city with important universities, cultural centres, new investments, and millions of people living normal lives. After decades of facing economic and social challenges, Birmingham has entered a new phase, attempting to rebuild not only its urban spaces, but also the way it is perceived both inside and outside the United Kingdom. In recent years, the city has received new investments in transportation, technology, housing, and urban regeneration. Modernisation projects aim to transform older areas and create new opportunities for residents and businesses. One of Birmingham's main goals is to become a more connected city that is better prepared for the future. The growth of sectors such as technology, professional services, and education shows an attempt to replace the city's former dependence on industry with a more diverse economy. The city is also trying to take advantage of its strategic position in the centre of England. With one of the largest populations in the country and a location close to several other major cities, Birmingham has the potential to attract new businesses and workers. However, the biggest challenge remains ensuring that this transformation reaches every neighbourhood. The growth of the city centre and more valuable areas does not automatically solve the problems faced by communities that still struggle with economic and social difficulties. For many residents, Birmingham's true success will not be measured only by new buildings or investments, but by its ability to improve the quality of life in the areas that have been left behind. The city that once built its reputation through factories is now trying to build a new identity based on innovation, diversity, and opportunities. But the big question remains: will Birmingham be remembered as a city that managed to overcome its problems, or as a place where progress only benefited certain parts of the population?